Hi, I'm MaryCatherine Maroney. I am the owner of Cozy Crooked Cottage, and welcome. Today we are going to talk about classical music soap. So classical music soap is a little confusing because classical music actually has two meanings. So classical music is, the general meaning of it is any Western music, Western art music from the medieval time period through the 2000s, through present time. But today we are actually going to talk about the specific classical time period, which is from 1750 until 1820. And so the classical period, this chunk of time, is coming right after the Baroque period, which is adding in these new components. It's adding in the sonata form. It is adding in the concerto. It is adding in symphony and trios and quartets. And so what it started to do is it started to bring clarity and structure into music from the time periods before, which we've already covered, such as Baroque and medieval. And so this is it's just a new thing as music continued to grow. And so a lot of things weren't being added. The piano is a huge change in classical music at this time. Orchestras got bigger, orchestras got louder, and had more instruments, and they also had a lot more texture, which ended up making it a little bit less complicated than it was during the Baroque period, as you heard in the prior video if you had watched that. And so these are all elements that I kept in mind when I was creating this soap for this time period. So as we've discussed before, we are covering 5 of the classical time periods, moving from Baroque up through Romantic, because contemporary itself is different. So just to get us all back on track. And so what I was looking for, and my notes are over here. So what I was looking for is something that was structured, something that was powerful and was textured but had form, and that was vibrant but a little less complicated than the Baroque, because the Baroque was a lot more complicated and a lot just more intricate. And so what I was drawn to turned into this. And so this is classical soap. And so the technique that I ended up using is that I took the main color and I created a line at the bottom. And so we have this solid line, this solid base, this structure. And then what I did is called an in the pot swirl technique, where I took the remainder of the color and swirled it into the pot to create this other part of the texture and the other part of the soap. So it's using the same color scheme and using the same balance, but then going throughout and creating an individual line and an individual instrumentation, if you will. And then, of course, because I love it, we dusted a little bit of the Maya Gold across the top, the Maya Gold glitter dust, because it still keeps that edge of sparkle and shimmer that's been carrying through these soaps and been carrying through the artistic times and all of this. And so when you think of the time period of 1750 to 1820, there's a lot of music that happened in those times. You had a lot of salons, you had a lot of music happening in homes, in concert halls, and I just kept thinking of the furniture also was something that drew me. And I actually had my brain stuck in Paris, and so I was thinking of Versailles, and I was thinking of all of this gilt furniture that had a shine to it, furniture that had gold on it. And so that's what drew me to gilting the edge of this, is that we had this structure, we had the form, we had something that was solid, something that had texture, something that had life and form, but then also had this delicacy and this beauty across the top. And so that is what kind of drew the classical time period soap into what you see before you. And this is scented, the scent is white tea and pear. And so it's a real delicate. The bottom is woody, so it has some roots, it has some like earthy tones. The middle is peach, and then the top is bergamot, lemon, apple, and it just gives this effervescent, like spring life, everything coming to new, just renewal and really vibrant smell, while still also being really elegant. And so that's what I was looking for when I was trying to figure out, what would this time period look like? What would it smell like? What will it feel like? And so just something to note as well, the really notable composers, the important composers from the classical period are really well known. You know, this is Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, Haydn. You know, these are composers that we hear whether you're a musician or not. These are composers whose music show up in commercials and they show up in movies, and we're really familiar with them, and it has had a huge influence on our popular culture as well as just our daily lives. And so that's something I wanted to get when I was making this soap, is something that is elegant, something that is refined and really beautiful, and is taking the raw textures, and as we move through the time periods, the music becomes more refined, the soap becomes more refined as well. So yeah. So again, welcome to Cozy Crooked Cottage. I'm MaryCatherine Maroney, and today was just a little bit of chat about the classical period, which is 1750 to 1820. So thanks for joining, and stay tuned.